Hi, it's Christine Daigle.
I'm Jena Brown.
I'm Kevin Tumlinson.
And I'm JD Barker. Welcome to Writers Inc. So Halloween.
Yeah.
First of all, I feel bad because I'm like, nobody can see us right now unless you're
Wait a
watching it
minute.
on video. But like everybody's dressed up but me.
It's
Um, I,
Halloween?
it's official. Like today's Halloween for real. Like last night here on the island, we had like our fake Halloween. For whatever reason, like trick or treating here, they never actually do it on Halloween.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
weird.
it was yesterday.
They do it on
Uh,
Devil's Night. That's the good night.
is
Ah,
that it? I don't know what the lot like the first year we were here, like I thought it had something to do with the weekend versus a weekday. But like they always seem to do it on the 30th or the 29th, like right before Halloween instead of on the 31st. And I'm sure there's a reason, and I'm sure if I, pull some long-term resident aside and ask them, they'll be able to rattle it off to me, but I haven't figured it out yet. So I
Yeah.
heard your 12-foot ghost died, or your
Yeah.
skeleton.
Yeah. Well, you know, the 12-foot ghost last year was epic, but that thing was such a pain in the butt to put together. It's all plastic parts, and you have
Yeah.
to like connect all the wires, screw them in, and it's just like it was enormous pain. And part of it is my fault because I did not take it apart. I kind of stored it in the shed in a couple pieces. And then I tried to put it back together myself.
hmm.
And it's a two-person job. So yeah, I broke off a head and a hand. And I was honestly pretty relieved. It was kind of what, Bob Ross would call a happy little accident. So I never had to put that 12-foot ghost together again. We had a
I don't
funeral. That's
I
fine.
don't really understand the trend. Walking through my neighborhood, it's like this intimidating wall of giant skeletons and ghosts, and
Don't talk bad about these giant skeletons.
it's crazy.
Don't do
I
it,
mean, come
Kevin.
I
on.
love them. I just want someone else to put them up for me
Where are you putting these things every year after the holiday? That's what
in the
where are
shed.
they still? Not all of us have sheds.
Well, you need
I
to
don't
get a
have a shed.
shed.
I do need a shed.
We don't have a shed, which is why I don't own a 12-foot skeleton, though I pester my husband every year for one. I think we should have a lot of them. But I also think that, all these giant skeletons should rise up against HOAs and just stay up all year
Yeah.
and just like change the thematic decor based on the holidays and just really get rid of the tyranny of the HOA.
Yeah.
That's what I'm hoping happens with these monstrous
The
skeletons.
longer you and I are on this show together, Jenna, the more I realize how much you and I have in common. We're both like anti-establishment.
Or I was a teenager in the 90s. Like, can you even
Yeah.
be a teenager in
Yeah.
the 90s and like not
Exactly.
like
I was so proud of some kids last night. There was the teenage boys, they were riding bikes, trick-or-treating and stuff, all dressed up, and they were blasting AC/DC. Like it felt
Nice.
like 1984 up in here. Like
Yeah.
that was probably my favorite
Yeah.
highlight of the
you
whole
know
night.
the 80s are enjoying quite a resurgence with the youngsters. My niece is obsessed with the 80s, and it's all thanks to Stranger Things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
I
yeah.
see a lot of t-shirts here. Nirvana, AC/DC,
But
a lot of
yeah.
old kids wearing the Metallica, the old school t-shirts. I love it. I'm here for it.
Well,
But it was the
Nirvana.
same sort of thing like in the 80s, there was an obsession with like the 50s and 60s,
Mhm.
and that was I was in that crowd. In fact, I didn't hear a song that was from the 80s until like 2000 or so.
That's hilarious.
I,
My one true love is Nirvana. I will always love Nirvana.
I
Well,
also love Nirvana,
And
but also Alice in Chains. So there you go.
oh,
you guys can keep both those. That's fine by
what?
me. That is fine by
Right
me.
now, see,
Nirvana.
Kevin, no, we are not similar. So,
We have our
Yeah.
similarities.
I listen to a
We
lot of them.
also
A lot of
clearly have our
Tool. I
differences.
listened to a lot of Tool as a teenager too.
oh, I love Tool. Tool, all right, Tool, Nine Inch Nails, Nirvana, like the Holy
Those
Trinity.
are all 90s groups
Yeah,
though.
I was
Yeah,
in
That's
I
not
was
80s.
in
the
high school in the
90s.
90s, Kevin. Some of
Yeah,
us are
that
younger.
well, I didn't listen to stuff in the 90s.
you guys keep this up, and Casey Kasem's going to come back from the dead and start chiming in. Let's what's in the news?
All right, in the news, Kindle Vella closure announcement. An email was sent out announcing that Amazon's serial fiction platform Kindle Vella will be coming to an end in February 2025, stating, quote, "The program hasn't caught on as we'd hoped. Between now and December 4th, authors will be able to continue to add new episodes to their existing stories. However, they will no longer accept new stories or story comments. Starting December 4th, authors will no longer be able to add new episodes to stories, and readers will no longer be able to buy new tokens. Writers were encouraged to publish their Kindle Vella stories as ebooks on KDP, and they have updated their content guidelines so that authors may republish immediately as an ebook. On November 4th, if it will be possible to download stories directly from the Kindle Vella library, so they are easier to republish as ebooks. When Kindle Vella closes in February 2025, the stories will be removed. How tragic
Yeah.
is that?
Rip Kindle Vella.
Christine, are you the only person here that's on Vella?
I think so.
Jenna, you're
Yeah,
not
I was
Vella,
on it
right?
from the
Okay.
I was on it from the beginning, July 2021, and was active on it for years. I haven't been so active on it the last year. It's hard. Like serials are hard. I have mad respect to people who pushed further than I do. We probably wrote the equivalent of 5 novels before we
Yeah.
kind of lost steam on it. Um, but there's been a lot of feelings in the groups that I'm in. Some people are like, they didn't try. They never let us advertise on AMS.
Yeah.
Um, Lots of rumors, fear-filled things going on that Amazon's gonna start doing a story generator that's AI without authors. I don't know. Like, I appreciated Kindle Vella. I never would have pushed into the indie space without it. It made marketing easier, publishing easier, and I learned how to write volume and be disciplined. So for that, I will always be grateful to Vella. But I mean, I saw this coming months ago. They're trying all these free token things, more free tokens, more free episodes. The bonus pool is dwindling, but I feel bad for the
Yeah.
people that were having good success on there that platform won't be there anymore.
There's alternatives to Vella though, right? Like
Oh yeah, there's
what are some of the ones
lots
people
of
could go
serial
to?
platforms.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, this one was a big one with big money behind it, right?
Right. Right. I never could get into it. Just didn't, I don't know. Just couldn't make myself even try it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, moving on. Penguin Random House books now explicitly say no to AI training. Penguin Random House is now adding a clause on the copyright page of new and reprinted books explicitly stating they cannot be used to train AI technologies or systems. This makes them the first major publisher to add such language. The clause also states the publisher's intent to withhold these works from the European Union's text and data mining exception. So,
Uh, might be a little too late. Like every book that I have with Penguin Random House has already been trained into these models. So
yeah,
it's nice they're drawing a line in the sand now, but it would be cool if they did it a couple of years ago.
yeah, I guess I actually will voluntarily let them train on all my books. I got no problem with it because it's not. I still stand by my stance that it's not plagiarism. It's not stealing. It's not it's not taking anything from the authors. It's just training the AI to it functions better. But
Kevin is pro robot
I
revolution.
am pro.
He will
Yeah,
submit to his AI
as as
overlord.
a proud cyborg myself with my implanted devices, I stand with my digital brethren.
Well, I suppose if AI can help me become immortal, I will also accept their rule forever.
Come over to my side.
Not quite yet.
I know you. I
I
know
think
the rest of the team dissents on this. What about you, JD?
I honestly, I think I'm inadvertently training it anyway because I'm using Claude for a lot of random things like coming up with backup book blurbs. Like
Yeah,
I've already taken like one full novel, fed it into Claude, and say, okay, give me 200 words for the back of the paperback. And
right.
Claude is good at it, and coming up with taglines. Claude's good at that. I've got a lot of books that are in translation right now, and the second somebody sends me a sample translation, the first thing I do is drop it into Claude and say, hey, was this done by a human or was it done by an AI? And Claude seems to know the difference. So like I'm uploading pieces of various books and in some
Yeah,
cases whole books, and it's going to end up in there one way or the other. I mean, as far as I know, like that data, like I don't can't imagine they're capturing all of it. And because if you think about the amount of data going in there every day, all around the world, like if they're really retaining all that, I mean, the processing power behind that and the storage is insane.
Yeah.
So I imagine it's got to be forgetting something, but it might be training itself off the data that's uploaded and then forgetting what it doesn't need to remember from that. Who knows? But it's there,
Yeah.
whether you want it to be or not.
Yeah, I want to add real quick too, because in the interview coming up, there's a mention of Plotter, and my good friend Cameron over at Plotter was telling me he's not ready to reveal this, I'm sure. So I won't go into all the details, but he's built something AI based that authors are really going to love, and I think but it's going to require you feeding your book into the AI. So I think that sort of thing is just going to happen. I think that we're just past the point of even needing to worry about it. It's already done. We just
Autocrit
need to kind of
use that?
embrace it.
What is that? Autocrit? Yeah, they have an
Yeah.
AI that will help you analyze your story. I know there's other AI that will kind of like um I forget the exact name of the book, but it was like How to Write a Bestseller. That group has an AI that you
Yeah.
can put your manuscript in and it'll tell you, like, did you hit the plot beats for the genre and do you have what it takes to be a bestseller,
Right.
basically. So, but
This is the point because these tools can be incredibly useful to the authors, but they're only going to be useful if the tools can understand what a good book looks like, and they can only do that if it's scanned in. So Penguin Random House deciding we're never going to let them, do that, is that going to, I mean, I don't know. I don't think it's going to have any real impact at all, honestly. I think it's just words on a page. I don't think it makes any difference.
yeah, I don't know. And I
Said
guess
cynically.
I know that the bestseller people, they worked directly with authors and publishers. So everything that they fed into their
Yeah.
algorithm was purchased
Yeah.
and agreed upon in some way. And I don't know what they used, but I know that I don't remember who told me about it, but I just remember learning about it and kind of reading a little bit more. And I thought, well, I mean, at least they are trying to do it more than just
Yeah.
the way a certain AI company began.
Yeah.
I wonder if Penguin Random House, like, does this language limit them from training their own model? It's there to
Interesting
keep them
point.
from being
Yeah,
used on other models, but I don't know.
Yeah. See, this is why you don't rush to make policies and make public statements about things. Because has that group thought through the implications of this statement? Because now if they do use it and create their own thing or train their own AI, authors involved may actually have grounds to sue. They might actually be able to bring a case against them. So, well, it's fun watching this landscape unfold, though. I'll say that. I don't think I could have predicted any of 2024 at all. So, next up, solid support for giant reports, which for some reason was very hard for me to say. Indie publishers using Book Report can now view their entire sales history thanks to an upgrade that supports larger data sets without crashing. The new version drastically reduces data load times and processing. New interface elements such as a progress bar and manual refresh option improve usability when working with massive reports, allowing users to make multiple changes without reloading each time. I haven't used Book Report in a while. I stopped subscribing to it maybe probably about 2 years ago now. But when I was still using it, I really did kind of enjoy it. It gives you a very attractive report. At that time, it was still KDP only. So, I canceled it because it wasn't useful to me because I was wide, but now that you can do wide reports on different platforms and the changes they're making, I may give it another shot.
Can you explain what it is?
So, given that I haven't used it in 2 years, I don't know if it still works exactly this way, but when I was using it, it was a browser-based thing, kind of a plug-in for your browser. And so when you went to do your reports, you could click if I remember right, you could click the button and it would bring up the report and show you in a nice, attractive graph and everything. It used to do this cool thing. The whole reason I enjoyed it was because it had a ka-ching sound. So every time you made a sale, it would make that ka-ching. I don't know if it still does that. But yeah, it's just a sales reporting tool. And there's a lot of them out there that are probably better. Scribe Count, from Randall Woods, he's got that whole setup, which will do all these reports and stuff. It may be better. I like Randall, so probably is better. But there's a ton of these things out there. But Book Report was kind of the first to to make basically make Kindle reports readable. Because it used to be gibberish until they improved it. Amazon improved their reporting quite a bit and made it much more attractive and easier to read, but it has its challenges. So,
I'm trying to find something where I can consolidate everything because I think I've got 6 or 7 different browser tabs open pretty much at
yeah,
any given time. And like each one tracks, one's book scan, one is KDP, one is this, one is that.
yeah.
And then, I've got a spreadsheet where I've got to copy and paste and put stuff together if I actually wanted, see it all as a total. And it is definitely a pain in the ass.
Try Scribe Count. Give it a shot. Have you heard of it or tried that at all?
No, no, I haven't looked
Okay.
at any of these yet.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a poor spokesperson for it because I basically have it, but I never use it. But it's only because I'm too lazy to go set everything up, really. But it'll keep you from having to have all the different tabs open at least. It'll consolidate everything in one place. And it's integrated with like Draft to Digital and Publish Drive and other, distributors and stuff. So if you use any of those, it'll pull reports from those. Anyway, so last item, literary publishers embrace the midnight release party. Midnight book releases gained popularity with the fourth Harry Potter book, leading to gatherings of subsequent books like Twilight and The Hunger Games, and now include literary fiction like David Foster Wallace's The Pale King and Harper Lee's Go Set a Watchman. These events, like Greenlight Bookstore's recent launch for Sally Rooney's Intermezzo, require close collaboration with publishers for swag, refreshments, and creative elements, enhancing the community experience and anticipation for the book. From Haruki Murakami's The City and Its Uncertain Walls, themed events are set to include DJs playing jazz, spaghetti bars, and Murakami-themed Muracuffins by Milk Bar. This echoes Christine. This echoes Kinokuniya Books' tradition of midnight Murakami events in Asia. I know exactly what's happening here. Midnight release parties continue to evolve as a popular alternative to traditional readings, celebrating books with a sense of community and excitement that often keeps fans reading into the early morning.
I
That
believe
was
in you,
just mean,
Kevin.
Set up.
Christine.
I believe in you.
I was set up.
I just want to go to a midnight release party for adults. I think that sounds fun. I want to go to a
Yeah.
spaghetti bar and eat Muracuffins.
Wake at midnight and dressed and in makeup and like social.
I like that it makes it an event, like, because you'll have release parties. Those are old hat. People know about that, but I don't know that I've ever actually been to a book release party, frankly. But I like the idea of it. I like the idea of making a big deal of these things. This is the kind of thing that you see this in like film and everything else has its big major events, but you don't see that as much with books and literary. JD might.
No, man, I'm a dad. I'm in bed in my jams by 9 o'clock. I'm not doing anything at midnight anymore. I used to go to back in the day, we used to have a lot of like music and album release parties and things like that down in Miami.
Yeah.
And those like they wouldn't even start until like maybe 11 at night, and they'd go till 5, 6 in the morning, and there'd be an after party for the after party, and that was a big deal on Miami Beach. But I don't think I've ever been to a major book release party.
Yeah. I know they exist.
I think we need more of them. I think it's fun.
I think you're right. I think that's exactly it. Like music and film and TV, they all have that sort of thing. So, but I think you're kind of right, JD, because I think the problem is that writers you're either an early bird writer or a late writer. So you're either in bed already or you're writing at that time.
Well, it's also, I think, kind of hard just given the nature of a lot of reading is whether you're introverted or extroverted, it's an introverted activity.
Yeah.
So I think it's just like I like the idea of them, but I don't know that I would go to them. I would, I guess, if I knew like there are circumstances I would go to, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know what would get me um outside of like very personal reasons to attend.
I don't know.
Oh, I
If
did go to Howler Fest when Pierce Brown released Iron
yeah.
Gold, and I did go to LA, and that was a big to do. There was bands and signings and all kinds of things. So I guess I have gone, but so yeah,
If someone
highly
like Neil
motivated.
Gaiman or, one of these other big authors that I like and follow were to have an event like that and I could score some kind of invite, I'd be all over it.
Yeah.
That'd be the event of the season. Well, anyway, speaking of
Anyway,
parties, that
yeah,
wraps us up on news.
perfect. JD, who is up this week?
This week we've got JT Ellison coming on. JT is a New York Times and USA Today best-selling author of more than 30 novels. She also picked up an Emmy for co-hosting the TV show A Word on Words. Her latest novel is called A Very Bad Place and releases November 1st. Here she is, JT Ellison.
All right. Well, hi. Thank you so
Hey,
much for being on our show.
thank you for having me.
Um,
I'm excited.
yeah, this is really exciting. So before we get into um all the very bad things that you've been up to, let's start at the beginning. How did you get into writing? What was your origin story?
I have a good origin story, actually. So I was planning to be a writer when I was in college, and I'd always been a writer from the very beginning. I wrote poems and short stories all through, childhood on, huge reader, huge fan of doing all the fun creative stuff. Writing was the only thing I was good at. I wasn't good at any of the other things, like drawing or
Right.
singing, painting, or anything like that. But the words were always easy. And my senior year of college, I was trying to get a recommendation to an MFA program, and my thesis advisor said I wasn't good enough to get published. So I
Ah,
listened to her and I quit writing. And I was a double major in politics and creative writing. So I went to the politics side of the fence and went to graduate school in political management, met my husband the first night of class. So that was the path I was meant to take, obviously. And I had some really cool jobs, and we lived in DC at the time, and so it was really kind of a neat world, but something was not right. Something always chafed. I didn't like working for people. I don't play well with others. The politics of politics was getting to me. And then my husband wanted to move back home to Nashville. And so we've been married for 2 years. And when we did that, we came back to Nashville and everything went wrong.
oh,
The cat that I had had since I was like 8, she died. That was not good. I couldn't find a job because my sum total of experience was aerospace marketing and presidential politics. So none of
wow.
that in
Yeah.
Nashville. I kept getting lost because there's one road called Old Hickory and it's on 4 sides of town. So you put in Old Hickory and you end up, 30 miles in the wrong direction. It just was a really rough go moving from this cosmopolitan world that we had lived in to this, at the time, small town, right? It didn't
Yeah.
have so many of the things it has now. So I got a job at a vet because that was the only thing. We adopted another cat. She was sick. She had a cold. He gave her meds and everything. And I was like, okay, this is a good setup, right? I can sit out front. I can meet people. I love animals. It'll be fun. So I get there the first day, and he actually wanted me to be a vet tech, which,
Ah,
if you've ever been on the other side of the door in a vet's office,
right.
not as fun as
Right.
sitting out front and meeting people. And so I was 3 days into that, and I was like, yeah, I was going to quit on Friday. And I picked up a big, huge golden retriever to put her on the table, and I ruptured a disc in my back. I had to have
Oh,
back surgery. And while I was recovering, I went to the library in the local area in Bellevue and said, I like crime fiction. Is there any new crime fiction out? And she said, have you read John Sandford? I was like, no. So she gave me the first 3 John Sandford books, and I was 3 books in and went, this is it. I want to do this. And I told my husband, I'm like, I want to try to write a book. And he was like, well, you've got nothing to do for the next 6 months and you can't bend over. So go for it. And Taylor Jackson was born on the highway on the way down to physical therapy for my back. So it was kind of a bad country music song there for a while, but it's worked out, right? My red
Right.
solo cup is full.
I mean, it's very serendipitous to have a career that starts as a bad country music song in Nashville, right?
Right.
That feels very poetic in a way.
This town's been very good to me. It's been very good to both of us.
That's
We really like it.
awesome. So you started in crime fiction, and now you actually write in a couple different genres. Does your writing process change depending on what you're writing, whether it's a series or a standalone or what genre you're writing in?
It really does. So I'm writing, I think 31, 32, and 33 right now. One is fiction, one is nonfiction. One's a thriller, one is nonfiction about the thriller that I'm writing, and one is a fantasy. So the fantasy novels I write under the name Joss Walker.
Mhm.
And they are so much fun. They are such a reprieve from the crime fiction world. It's about a CIA librarian named Jane Thorne who, she's an archival librarian at Vanderbilt. She touches the wrong book. She opens a dimension into a new world, finds out that magic has been throttled for years. She's a master magician. It's going to be up to her to bring magic back.
Oh, I love that.
It's really fun. It's a reverse dystopian. We start in a world that there's no magic, and we end in a world that magic is everywhere, and people who don't have magic are rare.
Oh, wow.
So it's
Awesome.
really, really fun. The problem was I didn't have a lot of time
Mhm.
to write it. So, I knew what the series wanted. I knew what I wanted the series to be. I knew what all 6 books were. I kind of plotted the whole thing out. And then I brought on a co-writer to help me write it. So the first one was Alicia Clappy. Alicia is an absolutely brilliant writer, and she's here local in Nashville. She helped build this world and just is incredible. And then it was like, I'm addicted to co-writing, right? Because it's so much fun to have 2 brains on a project.
Yeah.
So she had never intended to stay for 6 books, right? She was like, I'm going to help you get it started. And then I've brought on another co-writer who is now gone. And now I've got another co-writer because, it's a long, I only release 1 a year of those. So it is a different process. It's outlining, which is not something I normally do. I hate outlining, to be honest. It is the
Interesting.
devil's child. It is not my thing. But if you've got 2 people working on something, you have to outline, and I have to give them enough of a idea of what I want. I can't just say,
Mhm.
"Oh, well, go write the book, and then I'll mess with it." I have to give very specific details of what I want. So it's been really fun. Over as JT Ellison, it's a completely different process. It's very organic. I can make stuff up. If I'm writing a series, that's the easiest of all because all you need is a plot. The characters are there, the world is built, the stakes are clear, and you're inputting, a killer, a series of murders, whatever the story is about, a terror attack, whatever it is.
Right.
I also co-wrote 6 books with Catherine Coulter. So I've been on the other side of the co-writing gig where I'm the one being told what to do. And she doesn't outline either. So that was challenging for both of us to try to come together in a world that she created and I was filling in the blanks. And we ended up using Pinterest boards where we had pictures of the characters, and that's when that all worked. So everybody could see the same thing. So I've done a lot of different kind of writing over the years. I've written a bunch of short stories. Those are fun. And the process for every single book is different but the same.
Yeah.
because, every book is different, but the same.
Right.
And I try to change my process every time because I think it'll be easier. And then I throw that out the window and go back. I have a very bad habit of hitting 70, 75,000 words and realizing the book doesn't work. Nothing I've done is right. And I have to throw it all out and blow up the book. And I literally, I'm at that point of my new book. I'm at 70,000 words and I'm blowing up the book this week.
Oh.
So that's part of my process. It's a control. This is not a nuclear detonation for once. This is a controlled explosion.
Well, I
So.
suppose that is controlled explosions do happen a lot in writing. It's so interesting that you have like essentially workshopped every type of writing process I think that's out there.
Right? I mean, I've done the outline. It's really funny for this particular book that I'm writing right now, that I'm writing the nonfiction book about it on Substack, right? I had this brilliant idea. I was counting up the steps of writing a book.
Yeah.
There were 22 steps. And I was like, oh, well, I'll just write a blog about the 22 steps of writing a book. Well, one of those steps is outlining. So I decided I had to teach myself how to outline.
Yeah.
So the outlining that I do, I call it 40 scenes. I sit down and if I can envision 40 scenes, it could be a snippet of dialogue. It could be just a picture of a person walking down the beach. It could be a scene that I know has to happen. As long as I have 40 of those, then I'm allowed to start writing, because writer math, 40 scenes, 2,000 words a scene, 80,000 words. That's a chunk, right? That's a
Right,
chunk
yeah.
of work.
Most of your book, yeah.
It's most of your book, but it's not in any order or anything like that. So I was like, all right, I got to figure this out. So I taught myself how to do Save the Cat and put together a 64 chapter outline. I'm like, damn, I'm impressed
Right.
with myself right now. This is incredible. And my agent's over there snickering, going, oh yeah, now's the time to change your process. 30 Brilliant. So I got 35,000 words in, realized how stifling this outline was, and threw it out the window and just started writing what I wanted to write. And I haven't looked at it since, because it's like, no, I don't like being, again, circling back to don't like being told what to do, even
Right.
myself.
Yeah. Well, I think that's also something that every writer sort of both struggles with and has to come to terms with, right? Like, what kind of writer are you?
Right.
And then just embrace that, but also with like the asterisk that you're going to come across books that are going to require you to change your process sometimes, and that's also okay.
Yeah.
Just sort of like go with it. So I think that's impressive that you've gone through. You could just teach whole classes on like, if you want to co-write, here's what to do. If you want to
Right.
outline, here's what to do.
It's, it's the, I don't know when I became the elder statesman, it's kind of hysterical to me that suddenly, but I've been in this business now for 20 years.
Yeah.
It's hard to imagine. My first book came out in 2007. I had been writing for a few years before I sold. And I've been writing about writing for 20 years. And because it helps me understand what I'm doing, right?
Yeah.
And things change. Things of being a writer 20 years ago versus being a writer now is a very different world. And the
Yes.
distractions that we have.
Oh man, yeah.
Wow. I mean, I struggle with that. The whole idea of you have to promote your work, right? The publishers
Yeah.
were like, look at your platform. This is a great thing. You're a brand now. And it's like, I don't want to be a brand. I want to be a writer.
Yeah. I have to hide my phone from myself quite often.
Well, sure.
It's just even knowing it's within reach, I'm just gonna grab it and I'll go on there thinking like, oh, I'm just gonna look up this one thing, and 33 minutes later I'm scrolling Instagram going, what am I doing?
Right. It's like, wow, I want to go visit that castle in Scotland. That has a lot to do with what I'm right there with you. It's been done to us. right? They've hijacked our brains. It's not like we have a lot of control over this. I mean, it really has been something designed to be addictive. If you
Right.
have
Oh
a
yeah,
remotely
for
addictive
sure.
personality, I traded cigarettes years ago for Gmail. And so, that email was always my addiction. And then, then Facebook comes along, and that's really fun to be able to talk to people and see how people are doing things. And then Instagram, and now it's visual. And when
Right.
you
Yeah.
start getting that visual component to the dopamine hits, I mean, this is a really big problem. That
Yeah,
and curate our lives for everyone.
it is. Particularly in how we see success and failure. I think that's an interesting. That's a whole conversation for a whole other day. Um, so I'm actually like fascinated, because you said, as JT Ellison, you don't typically outline. And one of the things I loved about A Very Bad Thing was, you've got this story inside the story, and the story sort of acts as like a different timeline, but not really. And then you have different perspectives, like you don't have just one perspective. How do you keep track of all that and not outline?
Scrivener. I use
Ah,
Scrivener.
okay.
So, and so it's really easy. I'm very visual. So I color code characters, and I color code where we are in time. I put the little icon of, it's an action sequence, whatever it is. I do that. I sometimes write large swaths in a single character's point of view, and then, go to another character. But the short story inside A Very Bad Thing was the frame for the whole story. I wrote that first so that I knew what the backstory was, and I didn't know how I was going to use it. I didn't know if I was going to use it.
Mm-hmm.
Even at the end of the writing of the book, I'm like, do we really need it? Can we pull this and have it still stand? And my editor was like, we're not pulling that. This is cool. I like this. So I was like, okay, cool. But it's giving little bits of the backstory, because I set a challenge for myself on every book, and the challenge for this book was the main character's dead. The main
Yes.
character is dead and doesn't have a voice. And that's a really challenging place to write a book from, is, here this is the titular character. I did it once before with a character not having a voice, and she had hysterical aphonia. So she had to write things and was in therapy trying to learn how to use her voice again. And that was an interesting challenge. This was way worse, because you can't talk to that person. You
Right.
can't you can't interrogate them the way you do to get to know a character. So all I have left is this short story that she wrote, and a daughter who thinks she knows her mother, and a reporter who's been invited on tour. The book opens with her dying the last night of tour for this incredibly big, splashy, about to be a movie book. Um, Columbia Jones she is every major author known to mankind, all rolled into a single ball, right?
Yeah.
She's
She was
every huge.
spectacular.
She is just a rock star. So you take Rebecca Yarros and Nora Roberts and John Grisham and Diana Gabaldon and J.K. Rowling. You throw all of them into this huge melting pot of, this woman is writing books that people connect with, which is really all that matters, right? That you
Right.
connect
Yeah.
with their book. And she dies. And you have to figure out who killed her and why. And of course, she's hiding some secrets, some very deep, dark secrets. And
Yeah.
that's where this whole idea of the curated life online comes from. That, I mean, my bio is what I say my bio is. Is that necessarily what my bio is? Is that necessarily true?
Yeah.
I read people's bios, and I'm like, well, what is that really about? What are they saying about themselves? Because that's not who they are. That's
Right.
what the marketing copy says. And I'm really, really interested in interrogating that. And so I spent 500 pages doing that.
Yeah, I thought it was, one of the first things that sort of made me sit up when I first saw the book was, you know, best-selling author who dies. And you're like, whoa, that's an interesting twist. And then how she interacted just with everyone and yeah, I really, really, really liked that. This is what everyone's perception of her is and what we accept and what
Mhm.
we don't. And then it really did kind of, you start thinking like, well, yeah, anyone can say anything almost these
Yeah.
days. And if you know anyone who's good with computers or you have a good lawyer, you can get anything off the internet if you need it to. So like
Sure.
it was a very fascinating premise. It was I couldn't put it down. I really enjoyed
Oh, yay. Thank you. Mission accomplished. If one person feels that way, I have accomplished my goal.
it. Yeah, well, I'm sure more than just I will feel that way. It was yeah, I think, writers will enjoy it for various reasons and obviously thriller readers and it's just yeah, it's a super interesting concept and I just really liked how all the pieces and I'm still floored that you don't outline, although Scrivener, I suppose.
No, Scrivener is like a visual outline, right? You can
Yeah.
see, and if you label it correctly, you can see exactly what's happening and where. I like multiple points of view, and this has what, 7 points of view?
Yeah, I think so. If you count the short story.
Yeah. So it's maybe 6 or 7. There's a lot of perspectives, which I thought was really important to this, so that everybody could give a view. I read John McPhee's draft number 4, and he in it explains how he wrote this incredibly huge article for the New Yorker. And he was laying on a picnic table on his back, staring up, trying to figure out how to structure this thing. And he explains that he starts with a little 0 in the middle and then starts moving the pieces around. And I was like, oh, okay, the shape of this book is an octagon. Columbia Jones is in the middle. All my books have shapes. So this one's an octagon. Columbia is in the middle. And every spoke of that wheel is a different perspective on her. And the person that's had the interaction with her. So we've got her daughter, who obviously has lived with her whole life and has a certain perspective. The reporter has a perspective of what she's been able to glean online and find out, and then trying to interview this woman and get to know her better. The police don't know her at all, so they have to pull in their perspective. You've got somebody from her past. You've got his perspective of he knew her back when, all of those things. And it was all based on, I saw that shape and went, aha. So you do that in Scrivener, and then you've got some sort of a guide. It's a loose guide. It's certainly not an outline, but it's not shooting totally in the dark.
Yeah, it's at least somewhat of a map.
It's a map. There's a
Yeah,
map.
that's awesome. Yeah, I'm gonna have to learn how to use Scrivener differently.
It's really a fun program. So, and I also use Freedom to turn everything off so I can't access online at all. And I turn it on everything, right? So the only thing that can happen is somebody can call my phone, and that's it. That's it. To try to block everything out, block out the distractions, give myself some breathing room and some thinking room, without that constant influx
Mhm.
of distraction and attention grabbing fun things over there. But Scrivener really lets me set that up, and I can structure things the way that I want, and I can break it into acts, and I can, just do all of the things there. It's a really great program.
Yeah, that's awesome. I tried it once. I've been playing with Plotter and that kind of does the same and it color codes it, so I like that a lot.
It is. So what's interesting, I've got a friend that uses Plotter, so I've looked at it when I was looking at trying to teach myself how to outline. That was one of the ones I looked at. And Plotter goes left to right. It's
Mhm.
a horizontal. I am vertical.
Oh,
So
interesting. Okay.
I need to see things lined up on the left, on the going up and down that way. That's how my brain works. I started looking horizontally and I was like, la 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 la.
Right. Yeah.
So it's, I mean, there are so many ways up the mountain. There's no right way. And I call it OPP, other people's process,
Yeah.
is the sexiest thing. It is so, oh my gosh, you just want that to work, right? You know, I just
Yes.
tried. I've got a friend who uses Truby, John Truby. I have never managed to get all the way through the book. She gets a new book of John Truby's Anatomy of Story every time she starts a book. She breaks the spine and she uses it to go through and make her book. And it takes her months. And then when
Yeah.
she's writing, you know, she knows the book and she writes it in a couple of months. I tried that. I can't do it. It is so sexy though. It looks so writerly. Just watching her with that book and the highlighters and all of the post-it notes. And it just looks like how a writer should write a book.
Yes. Yeah, I can see that. Yes, being envious of other people's processes is very like, oh, that just looks so satisfying and so nice.
I mean, I look at the desks where everything's piled up and there are books and there are notebooks and everything, and I'm just like, ah, it's what a writer looks like. And then I look at mine and it is sterile. I have a few little toys. I have some crystals, but it's clean. You know, I can't write in clutter. You know, so everybody's different, and there's just no one right way of doing this. And if there's anything I like to teach new writers, I don't like to teach, but if I do, that's like the first thing I say is whatever works for you is what works.
Yeah.
It's not what works for me. It's not what works for somebody else. So Scrivener is a great tool, but if Plotter works for you, don't even bother, right? You
Mm.
know, it's one of those things. It's how your brain's wired.
Yeah, I think again, like we had talked about earlier, like it's just one of those things where I think, as writers, we sort of want to find that secret answer, right? Like we're constantly on the hero's journey looking for the elixir of life.
I mean,
And
I'm writing what books? 31, 32, and
right,
still
yeah.
looking for it. I'm still looking for the elixir of life. If you
Yeah.
know
And
where it
we have
is.
it the whole time. So I guess like our elixir is realizing, all right, this is the process that works for me and accepting it for this book and then starting all over again with the next.
Internal quest.
Yeah.
It's all internal. It's all here. It's all in our heads, and we don't need to be trying to discover it elsewhere. But that doesn't matter. You know,
Right.
we sell ourselves that bill of goods that there's something out there that's going to make it easier. Writing's
Yeah.
hard.
Writing is hard, but I think it's probably in our nature to to look at problems and wonder what the other answers are. I mean, that's what makes a good plot, right? Is
Sure.
here's an answer, but what are some other interesting answers out there? So maybe that's why we're always searching.
I mean, I think we're searchers in general. We're trying to make sense of the world and do it in 100,000 words so other people can make sense of it with us.
I
It's a
love
very romantic idea,
it
right?
is. It's extraordinarily romantic.
It really is. And so, you know, sometimes you just have to roll with it and not be so precious about it, you know. I guess that's why my process changes every time. But there are still elements that show up, like
Yeah.
blowing up the book at 70,000 words. You know, there will be a moment too where I would really rather jump off a bridge than finish this book.
Yeah.
It's not revealing itself to me. Everything's stupid. I hate it. Nothing is right. And then all of a sudden, and I have that thought, I'm like, you know, Publishers Marketplace is going to do a really great bio on you and it'll be cool. And, you know, and usually that day, boom, oh, there's the solution. And then I can finish the book. I mean, there are moments. My
Yeah.
husband will always say, oh, you're at that point. I love the book. I hate the book. The book doesn't work. The book is working, you know, just
Right. Yep.
yeah, it's crazy. We're why we chose to do this, I don't know, but I wouldn't choose anything else.
I agree 100%. So this has just been amazing and incredible. Before I let you go, where can readers find you and your book? Do you have any events coming up when you
I do.
launch?
So, book launch will be at Parnassus Books on November 1st, and then I will be at Poison Pen Bookstore in Scottsdale, Arizona on the 2nd. Those are the things that I know for sure confirmed right now. There might be some, I don't know how much physical touring I'm going to do for this book, which is actually kind of refreshing. I've, I've done a lot of touring, and yeah, I love being out there and seeing the booksellers and librarians and meeting people, but I will be on deadline for another book at the same time. So it will be kind of nice to be able to use that as an excuse to stay home. Online, I am Thriller Chick on Instagram and on Twitter and on Threads, I think, though I'm not really on Threads, but everybody is kind of on Threads now. Um, and JT Ellison 14 on Facebook. And my Substack is called The Creative Edge. And that's where I spend the most time now. I'm finding that long form, or at least short long form, is a better use of my time than the endless scroll. So that The Creative Edge is where I'm doing the writing series called 22 Steps. And I would love for everybody to come check it out. And obviously jtellison.com.
Obviously. Yes. Well, I definitely think that we will have some people that hop on over there. Thank you again so much for your time.
Thank you. This has been so much fun.
Okay, guys, I need to know right now, what does your bio say or not say about you?
Like
Dun, dun,
literally?
No, not
Okay.
literally.
Well, I just rewrote mine like probably pretty recently because JD made me rewrite it. But you know, yeah, I appreciated what she's saying. Like it's not you. It's
Right.
Yeah.
mostly to highlight things related to the books that you write. Why might you be an expert or an authority on what you're writing? Why should people care?
Mhm.
And then, some writing credentials, if you have them, see, look, I can write, and then maybe an interesting fact about yourself to make yourself look more interesting than you probably are. I don't know. Like that's yeah. I'm like, I'm gonna put? I like to read books and hang out with my cat. Like that's not that interesting.
I always emphasize the things that I think are going to make me stand out a little, like, I think I still actually haven't mentioned this in my current bio, but like, we did the whole full-time van life thing and traveled the US and traveled the world. So I mentioned things like that. So my bio is meant to say that I am an inveterate traveler and that I cultivate experiences to use in my work. That's what I'm trying to imply to people. I heard something interesting in a podcast today, though, that applies to this. And the guy was saying that the things you say and the way you say it are what people that is you, that is who you are to the people you're communicating with. So that's what a bio is supposed to be. You're communicating to them who you are and why they should read your work.
Yeah. I just thought it was really interesting because obviously the bio was not who this person was in JT's book. And then you think like, wow, you glance at it, you read it, and you think like, oh, like that person. But do you? Now
Do
I'm
you, do you ever read a bio for an author before you buy their book?
yes, I do.
I think a lot of people do. And like honestly, like I'm listening to this and like my bio was created by somebody at HarperCollins and it kind of fits that same formula you expected, New York Times bestseller, blah, blah, blah. And like it's got the points that you would expect to have in an author bio. But I think
Yeah.
because it's so formulaic, it's boring. Like you gloss over it. Like if you think about it, like the bio tends to be on the back of, pretty much every book. Like it's in the face of the reader. Like that's really a missed opportunity for the author to come up with something creative that's different from the normal formula for a bio, like something that might actually grab a reader's attention. Because I think
Yeah.
just about everybody, when they're browsing books, they pick it up, they read the, whatever the book is about. And if they keep going, the author bio is their next thing. So if you could put something in there that grabs their attention, like that could probably really get you some sales.
Yeah, I like a good bio. I think, if they sort of like it kind of gives you a little bit of insight sometimes, not always, but sometimes into like what you might find in the book too. Like if there's, if it kind of makes you chuckle, like they have a funny little thing, you think like, oh, maybe, all right, there might be something like that in the book. I
See,
think.
that's where I think there's a little bit of danger though, because if let's say that you write a funny, witty bio, but what you write is a much more serious, tone or
Well, yeah,
supposed to be darker or whatever. So like it does have to match, I think, the tone of
for
your work.
sure. Yeah, I do think that when it matches, it's the best. But I don't know. It's always, I think it also is kind of interesting too, like when I pick up particularly a debut, so if it's, like a legal thriller and then you find out that like the person, was a lawyer, then you're going to think like, okay, so this is going to be possibly slightly more interesting and accurate than someone who hasn't been a lawyer. Just those little details that can be difficult to recreate. Not impossible, but I do think it can lend a little bit of credibility to what the author is writing too.
I want to read a legal thriller by like a convicted murderer.
I'm sure they
You get a
exist.
whole different flavor from the book that way.
I do like author photo. When you see some of these horror photos or these guys that are writing noir and they've got like their smoking jacket and their cat or they're on a motorcycle and I'm like, they just make me laugh. So I do think a good author photo paired with a good bio. Yeah, you probably could snake some people in. I'm thinking of like Joe Hills.
Yeah.
He's on his motorcycle and you're like, he doesn't look like that in real life, but it's a pretty great photo for an author bio.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yes, you have to have an interesting but not too interesting author bio and photo paired together to match the genre you're writing. Check. All right. Well, I guess this leads us perfectly into the next question. How do you block out distractions while you're writing?
I
Totally.
actually don't block out distractions anymore. What I've learned is I have my little focus bursts of writing time that last however long they last. And then what I do is give myself, when I kind of come to that moment where I'm feeling the pull, like I'd rather be watching a video or, I don't play video games anymore, but like if that was my thing, I've learned to give myself a moment to do that. Like I'm going to take 5 minutes and watch this, these two videos or whatever. And then when it's done, I come back, I do some more writing, and I'm finding I'm more focused that way. I get more writing done throughout the day because I'm not. It's sort of that idea of like I'm not fighting the urge, so I'm not expending energy on it. Instead, I'm allowing myself to have a little. I don't allow myself to just stop the writing altogether and play video games all day. That wouldn't be productive. But doing this in kind of little bursts and cycles has been useful for me.
So you do like natural pomodoros kind of.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like that. I never could figure out how the Pomodoro method really worked. I couldn't get it to work for me, I guess. I'm too stupid or something. I don't know. But I never could get into the rhythm of that. But I see this as being similar to that. Just I'm right for a period, however long that's going to be. And frankly, what I've noticed is that the writing bursts get longer and longer, the more I do this. So because I know I'm not going to deprive myself of, that video or the reading that tweet or whatever. I don't want to scroll for hours, on social media, but I know that if I'm going to take 5 minutes, 10 minutes to do that, and then it's back to the work, like I tend to stretch out the work longer because, I can kind of bank the time, the video time if I want. I have little internal rules I follow.
So are these things open and running like as you're writing? Like are emails coming in as you're writing and then tweets coming in as you're writing and like all these things
No.
popping up in your
So
face?
like I put no, I close everything except the stuff that I'm immediately using, which is typically I got a browser open to I'll have YouTube open, but it's usually playing music or something. And I turn on the do not disturb so that, unfortunately I can still see the little red bubble that tells me I have like, 10 messages or whatever, but I won't let myself open that. I sort of note that and say, okay, I'm aware that that's there, and it used to really cause my brain to itch knowing it's there, but knowing that okay, in 15 minutes I'm going to take a break and I'll check those. It allows me to put it on hold without it driving me nuts.
See, I
I
can't do
want.
that. If I
Yeah.
have an email come in, like just hear that sound or whatever, like I have to go and look at whatever that is, and then it
Yeah.
becomes something I have to deal with. Like
Well, and
if I
you're
don't
an
turn off the
inbox zero
internet, it's
guy.
yeah, but
Yeah.
but it's the same thing with, like my phone, I have to flip it down so the screen isn't facing me, so like I can't see anything coming up on there.
Yeah.
Any of those things will distract me. My
That
biggest problem right
that's
now is we're building an addition on our house, and I've got contractors running around outside, and like they keep ringing the doorbell, because they need me for this or for that, and like that
yeah.
pulls me away for a good 15 minutes or whatever. Then that there's no way for me to turn that off. Unfortunately, I've tried to turn them off and it doesn't seem to work.
So
Um,
I've been meaning to tell you that I started doing the inbox zero thing because you made me feel guilty. And so I'm currently inbox zero like every day. But what happens is like I turn email off while I'm writing or while I'm doing stuff like this. And then when I turn it on,
well, yeah,
it'll
everything comes in.
yeah, it all comes in and then it eats like an hour. Like it takes a crazy amount of time to catch up after just being turned off for like 2 or 3 hours. So
Yeah, but the difference is you're handling it at a blocked out time when you feel
yeah,
it fits. It's not
yeah.
distracting you from something else, I guess.
Oh, that's true. I saw this neurologist say that, um, Kevin, you're actually doing it correctly, that you're supposed to acknowledge like the urge to get distracted, but
Yeah.
not act on it. And that the more you do that, like you said, the longer your sessions go because you're sort of like training your focus muscles instead of rewarding your distraction muscles.
Oh,
So
I had to be right about something sometime.
you
So
did. It was your time. It was coming. You knew
I
it.
can see Christine. I can see she's ready to debunk everything we just said though, right?
No, that sounded good to me.
Okay.
It was an actual neurologist who said it. I'm not just making it up.
Okay.
So
Okay. All right.
I believe you. That's like the mindfulness stuff, right? The longer you do
Yeah.
it, the better you get on it. Like people think mindfulness is having a quiet and empty mind, but that's not true. It's just
yeah,
noticing what is
Yeah.
pulling your
not acting
attention
on it.
and then
Yeah.
deciding whether you're going to let
Right.
your attention be pulled that way or not. So it's,
Yeah. In my head
instead of being
it's
reactive, you're being responsive and thinking about what you're
yeah.
doing. So yeah,
Yeah.
no,
in,
I
in
agree with
my
you.
head, I think of it as it's all about intention, like I'm okay. My intention is I know I need to write. I don't want writing to be a drudgery. So I'm going to reward myself. I know
Yeah.
that I need to answer emails, but I don't want that to take over my life. So I'm going to put it aside. And I am terrible with schedules. Like schedules make me feel like I want to die twice. So I try to avoid like over scheduling because that's what I'll do. It's like if I decide, oh, I'm only checking email at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I will sit there and friggin' dread 3 o'clock all day long and get nothing done. So
Yeah.
it has to be after bursts. Like it has to be sort of like running a race or jogging or something. Like, okay, I'm gonna run and I'm gonna go to that next pole and then I'm gonna walk to the next pole. That's the way I always used to run. It's to keep myself kind of going. So it's the same sort of thing. Okay, I'm sitting at 1,500 words now. When I hit 2,000, I'll stop for 10 minutes and check email and watch a video and whatever, and then I'll get back to it. And then it's not on a schedule, but it is on a rhythm. That's the way I
Yeah.
do.
I think it's also kind of interesting, and Christine, feel free to confirm or deny, but just the way anticipation works in the reward system in your brain, we think that the reward system hits when we get the reward, but it's actually the
It's the
anticipation built up.
anticipation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you're doing that, you're sort of also like focusing on the anticipation of getting to do something, which is going to make writing a bit more pleasurable while you're doing that, just because you've got that reward system going. Christine, am I right?
You are always right, Jenna. Of course.
I did not pay her to say that.
No, not yet. I'll ask you after.
All right. Well, just one final question, and this is probably going to throw everyone for a loop, because I didn't even think of looking at books this way. But if you had to assign a shape to your books, what would it be and why?
Octagon. Is that what we mean by that?
Yeah, I guess she
Why,
said
'cause
hers
they're
was a
always fighting?
hexagon with everyone looking at her main character in the center, right? All the
Yeah.
perspectives. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's
Mobius strip.
the what is it from the Anatomy of Story, where it's, some are
Yeah.
clusters or ovals, or I was kind of interested in she's a very visual writer, as you heard, like with using Scrivener, and
Yeah.
if you follow her newsletter, she also goes into more detail about how her edit note, she'll use like emojis to flag different scenes and stuff to make it very visually appealing. So it's very interesting that she even sees her manuscripts in different shapes.
Do any of you have an issue? Like, that's probably my number one problem with Plotter. Like, I've tried to use it, and like the fact that it lays everything out horizontally for me is
Yeah.
like, that's my biggest hang up, because I'm so used to
Yes.
Scrivener with the column on the left. Like she
Yes.
said that, and it was like a light bulb going off. Like I felt like at
I
least
need
I'm not
to-
the only one.
I need to ask Cameron, because I'm sure there's a way to sort of reorganize or whatever. There has to
There
be,
has
like,
to be.
he's
Yeah.
thought of everything, and I'm the same way. And in fact, one of the reasons why I can't use Word to write a book is because I will often want to have like reference material, um, off to and it always has to be on my left. And I could do that in Windows. I could open different windows, but like if I'm trying to refer to a previous section of the book or something, I want to open it in a window pane on the left. But Word does a split, but it will only do it vertically, or it'll stack it vertically.
Just do the
Sorry.
two documents.
Yeah, I could do two documents. Like I could open a whole other version of it, I guess, or copy it. I don't know. But if I'm working from within the same document, it's challenging. But
Yeah.
Scrivener allows me to have. In fact, I just discovered that you can open in Scrivener. If you context click on one of the scenes or files or something, you can have it. There's an option that says open, and you can have it open in I think it's called a reference window, and it'll open it kind of like a separate text document, and you can move that around. So like Scrivener is great because it has that split, but that can also be problematic. But if I can actually have two or three different things, though, you can only open one additional thing in that split. So like if you split the view, you can have like your scene open on the right and maybe your character or outline or something on the left, right? But if I use this reference window thing, it'll actually I can open as many documents as I want. So I have my outline on one side and my list of characters on the other, because I don't reference that as much. And then, in the middle is all dedicated to the scene.
I will say, in defense of Plotter, because I use Plotter, what I like about the horizontal thing is that I use, and I probably don't use Plotter, like I don't draft in Plotter, but what I use it for is my visual corkboard, in essence. So I will have my external plot arc mapped out with all the beats, and then I will have the like main character thematic internal character arc mapped out underneath it, and then I will put all the other characters and based on their archetype and what plot beats they need to hit at one point in the story. And because it's sort of like going across, but then all the characters are going down, so I can easily tell where a side character needs to do something for their story arc, but it has to make sense with the main character so that it helps guide them into that decision that makes sense for the main story. And I really like that I can do that very easily in Plotter, and you can, make it I know you can allegedly do different colors in Scrivener, but I just really like the color choices in Plotter.
The corkboard thing in Scrivener, you could probably replicate that to a degree, if you want it.
But Plotter just does it for me.
Plotter just does it, right?
Yeah, it just does it. It just makes it's very intuitive in that way for me. And then I also like that Plotter has, and maybe Scrivener has this, I don't know. But Plotter also has, you can go in and pick a story type, so if you want to write a hero's journey, it will lay it out for you. And then, if you want to do a subplot of, a thriller, so if you want to do the hero's journey with like more thriller beats, you can have both of those and kind of see which one, if you're like writing a cross-genre book. So I don't know. I like it. I understand. Scrivener does a lot. I guess my problem with Scrivener is that I have to know what it does and then I have to do it. And I just want to just have it just pretty and easy.
Yeah. I think that's what she was talking about. Processes are always evolving and we're playing with different stuff. So yeah, keep playing, keep changing. And with that, JD, who is up next week?
Next week, we've got Leah Paulos coming on. Leah is the founder of Press Shop PR and the newly launched book publicity school. She's going to basically run through everything authors need to know to publicize their book in today's crowded market.
Awesome. If you'd like to be notified as soon as new episodes publish, make sure you go to writersincpodcast.com and sign up now. We'll see you next episode and have a great week of writing.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Writers Inc. Access the show notes and leave a comment at writersincpodcast.com.